Hello everyone, welcome to this geopolitical channel. So we are still following up the situation in the Idlib province. As you probably know, 520,000 people have been displaced over the last days, and that's why it is a matter of national concern for Turkey, because those people now are moving closer and closer to the Turkish border. And since now, since 1 year and a half, Turkey has decided to close its border with Syria to halt this influx of refugees, because as Turkey is hosting around 4 million refugees, maybe more, Turkey is not capable now of hosting further refugees, and that's why they stop them now at the border between Syria and Turkey. And in order to avoid a humanitarian disaster due to the fact first that we are in winter time and that the temperature are now below to zero in the morning in the Idlib province, Turkey is trying to find a solution how those people can stop coming, leaving their villages, their towns, their houses, to come to this Turkish border to get the protection from Turkey, at least at the border. Turkey now is therefore thinking about a military offensive, probably at the end of this month. At least it's what we understood from the statements last week from President Erdogan and today from the Turkish defense minister. I would like just to quote you what President Erdogan said on Wednesday. If the Syrian regime does not pull back, Turkey will be obliged to take matter into its own hands. It's what he said. He gave as a deadline end of February. Basically, Turkey would like that the Syrian troops withdraw from the observation post where Turkish soldiers are present. You know that as a part of the Astana process, 12 observation posts have been set up in the Idlib province, and now, due to this offensive of the Syrian regime, you have 3 observation posts which are surrounded by a Syrian regime, and the Turkish government is very concerned about the safety of those Turkish soldiers. But despite this situation and the encirclement of the Turkish soldiers by Syrian regime, Turkey is determined to keep those soldiers in the observation post, because in that way Turkey does have soldiers on the ground, and probably they could use those soldiers in the observation post for an offensive against the Syrian regime, because we have to keep in mind that it's very unlikely that the Syrian regime will try to compromise with Turkey. It's probably even the opposite. The calculation of the Syrian regime is probably to divide this alliance or this a good relation between Turkey and Russia, in order that Russia takes sides either with Turkey or with the Syrian regime. And as we know, Russia has so many interests which lies in Syria, probably Russia will take sides with Syria at the expense of its relation with Turkey, and that's exactly what the Syrian regime is now thinking about, and that's why he will probably the Syrian regime will pushing even further in terms of offensive. The first gain, also we have to keep in mind that there is also very important gains for the Syrian regime due to this offensive. They just announced today that they have been able to retake entirely the M5 and M4 highway. So we remind that the M5 is connecting Damas to Aleppo, so the two main cities of Syria, which could really help the Syrian regime in order to connect the two main cities between themselves, and the M4, which connects Latakia to Alep. So in that way, the, let's say, Alawite region, which is home of Bashar al-Assad, will be able now to trade with the rest of the country. So that's first. So that's why for the Syrian regime, this offensive is so important. It enabled to put an end to the encirclement of the Alawite region and from Damas. And when we know that this region, Syrian economy, is totally on the verge of collapse, even we can say it's collapsing. So these are real big relief. Those news about the opening of the M4 and M5 for the Syrian regime. So as you see, there are both economic and political calculation from the Syrian regime that explain this offensive, and that's why we will probably not see anything that indicates that they will stop their offensive by the end of February, as would like the Turkish authority, but even we can think that they will probably even continue their bombardment, even probably at a larger scale. And that's why today the Turkish defense minister has probably starting talking about what he called a plan B or plan C for the Turkish army. Since Friday now, we have seen some military reinforcement at the border between Turkey and Syria. So probably that indicates that Turkey is preparing a large-scale offensive in Syria, probably trying at first stage to bomb some position of the Syrian regime, like they did, for example, on Monday, where with the killing of at least 13 Syrian soldiers, even 76 according to the Turkish government. And that's, we don't know exactly what it is intended by the Turkish government, by those plan B and C, but probably we can probably reasonably think that they are preparing a very important large-scale offensive. Turkey is trying to avoid any incident with Russia, and that's why they brought an important Russian delegation to Turkey this weekend in order to coordinate an offensive. But it could, unfortunately, happen that Russia could try to support this regime, and that's why any offensive could also have some risk, let's say, to cause Russian casualties among soldiers. And that's why Turkey is trying to avoid such a scenario. But at least let's see how things could evolve by the end of the month, and whether Turkey is ready now to launch its large-scale offensive against the Syrian regime.